In 1960, four college students sat down at a Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and refused to leave. That counter changed America, and you will hear the whole story before this video is over. But most people forget what Woolworth's was first. It was where millions of Americans ate lunch on a swivel stool between shopping trips. Number 19 was mixed by hand, right in front of you, and tasted like nothing in a can today. Number 8 was so cheap, a working man ate it 3 times a week. These 25 foods fed a country, then vanished the moment the lunch counters went dark. The last American Woolworth's closed its doors in 1997, and it took these recipes with it. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 forgotten Woolworth's lunch counter foods nobody serves anymore. Number 25, the liverwurst sandwich. Before America decided organ meat was something to be ashamed of, the liverwurst sandwich was a lunch counter standard you could order at any Woolworth's in the country. A waitress would take a roll of soft Braunschweiger, slice it thick, and lay it on white bread with a smear of yellow mustard and a thin slice of raw onion. That was the whole thing. The liverwurst was rich and faintly metallic, spreadable almost like pâté, and it cost about 15 cents in the early 1950s. For a man working a shift downtown, it was protein, fat, and salt in one cheap package that held him to supper. The sandwich showed up in every five and dime from Buffalo to Birmingham because the meat was cheap, kept well behind the glass case, and required no cooking. It disappeared not because anyone decided it tasted bad, but because a generation grew up associating liver with hard times and turned their backs on it. Today you cannot order liverwurst at a single national chain in America. The taste left with the lunch counters that served it. Number 24, the Spanish hot dog. This was not a chili dog the way we know it now. The Spanish hot dog was a Woolworth's invention born from a need to stretch a nickel's worth of meat across a whole bun. A steamed frankfurter went into a soft roll, then got buried under a spiced tomato and ground beef sauce, raw onion, and a line of mustard. The sauce was thin, sweet, and faintly smoky, with just enough cumin to earn the name. 2 of them made a full lunch for under a quarter in 1955. Kids saved their allowance for them. The lunch counter cook kept a pot of that sauce simmering all day on the back of the flat top, ladling it over dogs as fast as the orders came in. The smell of it drifted across the toy aisle and the candy counter and pulled shoppers toward the stools. When the lunch counters vanished, so did the sauce, and nobody ever wrote the recipe down because every cook made it slightly different and nobody thought it would matter. Number 23, the pimento cheese sandwich. In the South especially, the pimento cheese sandwich was the cheapest hot lunch a Woolworth's could put in front of you. Sharp cheddar was grated, folded with mayonnaise and chopped pimentos until it turned a soft orange, then spread thick between 2 slices of white bread and pressed on the griddle until the outside crisped and the inside went molten. Some counters served it cold, but the grilled version was the one people drove across town for. A sandwich cost about 20 cents and came with a pickle spear on the side. The pimentos gave it a sweet, almost tangy edge that cut through the richness of the cheese. Southern grandmothers made their own version at home for years, but the lunch counter pimento cheese had a specific creaminess that came from being made in 5-pound batches every morning. Today, pimento cheese is sold in tubs at the grocery store for $4 and marketed as a Southern delicacy. At Woolworth's, it was just Tuesday. Number 22, the toasted tuna salad sandwich. Tuna salad was everywhere in mid-century America, but the Woolworth's toasted version was something a little better than what your mother packed in your lunchbox. Canned tuna was drained and mashed with mayonnaise, finely diced celery, a squeeze of lemon, and a pinch of onion, then spread on bread and grilled until the edges went gold and the filling warmed through. The heat softened the whole thing into something almost like a melt without the cheese. It cost about 25 cents and came with a handful of potato chips and a pickle. The genius was in the celery, cut so fine you barely saw it, but felt the crunch in every bite. For a woman shopping with 3 kids, this was the affordable sit-down lunch that felt like a treat without breaking the budget. The sandwich survived in diners longer than most items on this list, but the specific Woolworth's preparation, grilled and pressed and served with that pickle, faded out when the counters closed. Number 21, Welsh rarebit. Here is a dish that sounds fancy and was anything but. Welsh rarebit was sharp cheddar cheese, melted slowly with a splash of beer or milk, a dab of mustard, and a shake of Worcestershire until it turned into a thick, savory sauce. The cook poured it bubbling hot over 2 slices of toast and slid it down the counter. It was the kind of meal that filled you up on almost nothing, which is exactly why it appeared on Woolworth's menus during lean years. The cheese sauce coated the toast and soaked into it, turning crisp bread into something rich and almost custardy underneath. A plate cost around 30 cents in the 1940s. Office workers ordered it because it was hot, cheap, and felt slightly elegant for the price. The dish has roots going back centuries in Britain, but in America it lived on lunch counters and church suppers until both disappeared. Mention Welsh rarebit to anyone under 50 today, and you will get a blank stare. Number 20, chicken a la king on toast. This was the dish that made a little bit of chicken feel like a real dinner. Diced cooked chicken was folded into a cream sauce studded with mushrooms, pimentos, and peas, then ladled over toast points or a split biscuit. The sauce was thick and pale gold, rich with butter, and the pimentos gave it little flecks of red that made the plate look special. At Woolworth's, it was one of the pricier items on the menu, maybe 50 cents in the 1950s, which made it the thing you ordered when payday had come and you wanted to feel like you were treating yourself. The chicken was usually the trimmings from whatever the kitchen had roasted, nothing wasted, but folded into that sauce. It tasted like abundance. Chicken a la king was on the menu at hotels and lunch counters alike for decades. It vanished from American tables almost completely once frozen dinners made it seem old-fashioned, and now it survives only in nursing home cafeterias and the memories of people who grew up on it. Number 19, the lime phosphate. Before soda came in cans, the lime phosphate was mixed by hand right in front of you at the fountain. The soda jerk would pull a shot of lime syrup, add a few drops of acid phosphate from a little bottle, then fill the glass with carbonated water straight from the tap. The phosphate gave the drink a sharp, tangy bite that no modern soda has, something between sour and bracing that woke up your whole mouth. It cost a nickel. On a hot afternoon, a lime phosphate at the Woolworth's counter was the most refreshing thing in town. The drink was a fixture of American soda fountains from the 1870s straight through the 1950s, and the acid phosphate was what separated a real fountain drink from the sweet stuff in a bottle. When bottled and canned soda took over, the phosphate bottle disappeared from the fountain, and with it went a flavor that an entire generation grew up on and that almost nobody can describe to their grandchildren today. Number 18, the hand-mixed cherry Coke. Today, a cherry Coke comes out of a machine that does the mixing for you. At Woolworth's, it was made by a person. The soda jerk pulled a measure of Coca-Cola syrup into the glass, added a shot of real cherry syrup, then triggered the carbonated water to froth the whole thing together. A good jerk could adjust the ratio to your taste. More cherry, more fizz, exactly how you liked it. It cost a nickel, then a dime. It tasted nothing like the version that pours out of a fountain gun today, because it was made with actual cherry syrup, not flavored concentrate. Kids would spin on the stools waiting for it, watching the jerk work the taps like a performance. The hand-mixed Coke was the social center of the American small town, the place teenagers met after school and old men nursed a glass for an hour. The machine replaced the person, and the ritual died with the job. First, pattern break. Here is where the story gets bigger than the food. The man making your lime phosphate and your cherry Coke had a name on the lunch counter circuit. He was called a soda jerk, named for the jerking motion he used to work the soda taps, and in the 1920s and 30s, it was one of the most desirable jobs a young man could land. A good soda jerk was part bartender, part showman, part short-order cook. He had his own language. Burn one meant a chocolate malt. Adam and Eve on a raft meant 2 poached eggs on toast. 86 meant they were out of something, a phrase that survives in every American restaurant kitchen to this day, even though almost no one knows it came from the lunch counter. These men could mix 40 drinks from memory, keep a counter of 20 people fed, and never write down an order. The job vanished when the machines arrived. We kept the slang and threw away the craftsmen. Number 17, the egg cream. The cruelest joke in American food history is that an egg cream contains no egg and no cream. It is a New York fountain drink made from cold milk, a thick squirt of chocolate syrup, and seltzer sprayed hard off the tap to whip up a foamy white head on top. The Woolworth's counters in the Northeast served it by the thousands. Done right, the foam was an inch thick, and the drink underneath was cold, chocolatey, and impossibly refreshing. It cost a nickel. The trick was all in the seltzer pressure and the order you added things, and every jerk swore his method was the only correct one. The egg cream was the drink of immigrant neighborhoods in Brooklyn and the Bronx, the thing kids bought with the change they found in the couch. It needs a real seltzer tap and real chocolate syrup to work, which is why it could never survive in a world of bottled soda. A handful of old fountains in New York still make it. Everywhere else, it is gone. Number 16, the black cow. A root beer float was good. A black cow was better. The difference was in how Woolworths made it. Instead of just dropping ice cream into root beer, the jerk would put a scoop of vanilla in the glass first, pull root beer syrup over it, then hit it with carbonated water so the whole thing foamed up into a brown, frothy mountain that spilled over the rim. You ate it with a long spoon and drank it with a straw at the same time. It cost about 15 cents. The cold vanilla against the sharp, sweet root beer created a creamy foam. In the middle, that was the whole point, the part you fought to get to. Kids ordered black cows on Saturday afternoons after their parents finished shopping, sitting in a row at the counter with foam on their lips. The drink survived in a few drive-ins and diners, but the Woolworth's version, made with syrup and a fountain tap instead of a bottle, had a specific texture that you cannot get anymore. Number 15, the frosted malted. The malted milkshake was the king of the Woolworth's fountain, and the frosted malted was its crown. The soda jerk would put milk, ice cream, flavored syrup, and a heaping spoonful of malted milk powder into a metal canister, then clamp it onto the green spindle mixer and let it whir until it was thick enough to stand a spoon in. The malt powder was the secret. It gave the shake a deep, toasty, almost nutty flavor that a plain milkshake never had, and a richness that coated your whole mouth. It came in chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, and it cost about 20 cents, served in the tall glass with the extra in the metal canister on the side, so you got a glass and a half. That metal canister of extra shake was the best part, the bonus that made you feel like you got away with something. The malted milkshake is nearly extinct now. Most places do not even keep malt powder behind the counter anymore, and a whole generation has never tasted what a real malt was supposed to be. Number 14, the hot turkey sandwich. This was the lunch counter's answer to a full Thanksgiving dinner on a working man's budget. 2 slices of white bread were laid flat on the plate, piled with sliced roast turkey, then drowned in a ladle of hot gravy until the whole thing went soft. A scoop of mashed potatoes sat on the side, also under gravy, and sometimes a spoonful of cranberry sauce for color. You ate it with a fork because it was too sloppy for your hands. It cost around 50 cents, and it was the closest thing to a home-cooked Sunday dinner that a person eating alone downtown could get on a Wednesday. The turkey was usually the leftovers from a bird the kitchen had roasted whole. Nothing wasted. The carcass simmered into the gravy. The open-faced hot sandwich, turkey or roast beef, was a diner and lunch counter staple for 50 years. It survives in a few old-school diners, but most Americans under 40 have never been served one and would not know to order it. Number 13, Salisbury steak. The Salisbury steak was the centerpiece of the Woolworth's Blue Plate special, and it was ground beef pretending to be something fancier. Cheap beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, and onion, shaped into an oval patty, browned on the flat top, and then smothered in brown onion gravy. It came with mashed potatoes and a canned vegetable, usually peas or green beans, all on one divided plate for about 55 cents. The gravy was the whole trick, dark and savory, made from the drippings in the pan, stretched with flour and water. It turned a 30-cent patty into something that felt like a real dinner. The dish was named after a 19th century doctor who promoted a meat-heavy diet, and it became the default meal of lunch counters, school cafeterias, and TV dinners alike. Today, the only place most Americans encounter Salisbury steak is in a frozen tray, a sad imitation of what the lunch counter cook made fresh every single day from real drippings. Number 12, Woolworth's chili. Every Woolworth's counter had a pot of chili going, and it was its own specific thing, not the Texas kind and not the canned kind. It was a soft, soupy chili, more beans than meat, seasoned with chili powder and cumin and a little sweetness, simmered all day until the beans went creamy. You could order it in a bowl with crackers, or ladled over a hot dog, or spooned over a plate of spaghetti for the version some counters called a chili mac. A bowl cost about $1.25 and came with a sleeve of saltines. On a cold day, that bowl of chili and a cup of coffee was the cheapest way to get warm in the whole downtown. The recipe varied by region and by cook, but the soft, bean-heavy, slightly sweet profile was the lunch counter signature. When the counters closed, that specific style of chili went with them, replaced by canned versions that taste like tin and thickener. Second pattern break. Here is something the food industry does not want you to think about. The Blue Plate special, that whole plate of meat, starch, and a vegetable for under 60 cents, was not a marketing gimmick. It was arithmetic. Woolworths bought ingredients by the rail car. They could put a hot, complete meal in front of a working person for less than that person could make it at home. because nobody at home was buying 1,000 pounds of ground beef at a time. The lunch counter existed to keep shoppers in the store longer, which meant the food was almost a loss leader, priced to barely break even, so you would stay and buy a dress and a set of dishes after lunch. That is why the food was so cheap and so good at the same time. When the discount stores and the malls killed the five and dime, they killed the only place in America where a complete hot meal was engineered to be sold at cost. Nobody builds a business model like that anymore. There is no profit in feeding people well. Number 11, tapioca pudding. The little pearls of tapioca suspended in sweet vanilla custard were a fixture of the Woolworth's dessert case, sitting in glass dishes behind the counter waiting to be picked. Some people called it fish-eye pudding for the way the soft pearls looked, but they ate it anyway. The pudding was made fresh in big batches, cooked slow so the tapioca pearls swelled soft and the custard around them turned thick and creamy. It cost about a dime and came cold from the case with a spoon. For a kid, the texture was the whole appeal, those soft little beads that you could press against the roof of your mouth. For an old man, it was a soft dessert that did not require teeth. Tapioca pudding was comfort food for everyone at the counter. It has nearly vanished from American restaurants now, surviving mostly in plastic cups in the refrigerated aisle, a pale imitation of the made-from-scratch version that sat in those glass dishes. Number 10, the Jell-O Parfait. Before Jell-O became a punchline, it was a genuine treat that Woolworth's served in a tall fluted glass that made it look like dessert at a fine restaurant. Layers of bright-colored Jell-O, usually cherry red or lime green, were alternated with whipped cream and sometimes canned fruit cocktail, building up the glass in stripes you could see through the side. It cost about 15 cents. The Jell-O was firm and cool and wobbled when the waitress set it down, and the whipped cream on top was real, piped from a canister. For a child, the parfait glass itself was half the magic, the way the colors stacked up like a little tower. Jell-O was the height of modern convenience in the 1950s, a space-age food that mothers and lunch counters both embraced. The parfait was its showpiece. Today, a layered Jell-O parfait in a tall glass is something almost no restaurant in America would think to serve, and the glasses themselves have mostly ended up in antique stores. Number 9, lemon meringue pie. The pie case at Woolworth's was a rotating glass tower, and the lemon meringue was the queen of it. A flaky crust held a layer of bright yellow lemon filling, tart and smooth, topped with a tall cloud of meringue that the kitchen browned until the peaks went gold. A slice cost about 20 cents, a quarter with a cup of coffee. The filling was sharp enough to make you pucker, balanced against the sweet, airy meringue on top, and the contrast was the whole point. The pies were made fresh, sometimes on site, sometimes delivered every morning, and they sat in that rotating case under the lights, tempting every shopper who walked past. A slice of pie and a cup of coffee at the counter was the great American afternoon pause, the 15-minute break that millions of people built into their day. The lunch counter pie case is gone, and with it the everyday ritual of stopping for a slice in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. Number 8, the coconut cream pie. If lemon meringue was the queen, coconut cream was the people's favorite, and at Woolworth's it was so cheap that a working man would order a slice 3 times a week. A graham or pastry crust held a thick vanilla custard packed with shredded coconut, topped with whipped cream, and a shower of toasted coconut flakes. A slice cost about 20 cents. The custard was dense and rich. The coconut gave it chew and texture, and the toasted flakes on top added a little crunch and a nutty depth. It was the dessert you got when you wanted to feel like the day had been worth something. The pies came in fresh every morning, and by the afternoon rush, the coconut cream was usually the first to sell out. American diner pie culture was built on slices exactly like this one, made cheap and made well and served with no ceremony. The coconut cream pie survives in a few diners, but the price and the everyday quality of it, the idea that a slice was just part of lunch, vanished with the counters. Third pattern break. Now here is the story I promised you at the start. On February 1st, 1960, 4 black college students sat down at the whites-only Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and ordered coffee. They were refused service. They stayed in their seats until the store closed. The next day, they came back with more students. Within a week, hundreds were sitting in. Within months, the sit-in movement had spread to dozens of cities across the South, and the Woolworth's lunch counter, that humble row of swivel stools, became one of the most important battlegrounds of the civil rights movement. By July of that year, the Greensboro Woolworths served its first meal to black customers at the counter. A section of that actual counter sits in the Smithsonian today. So when we talk about Woolworth's lunch counter food, we are not just talking about pie and chili. We are talking about a place that fed America, and a place where America was forced to decide who it was willing to feed. The food was ordinary. What happened over it was not. Number 7, the hot fudge sundae. The Woolworth's hot fudge sundae was a production. 2 scoops of vanilla went into a footed glass dish, then real hot fudge, kept warm in a pot at the fountain, was poured over the top so it set against the cold ice cream into a chewy ribbon. Then came whipped cream, a scatter of chopped nuts, and a single maraschino cherry on top. It cost about $0.25. The fudge was thick and dark and warm, and the contrast of hot and cold was the entire experience, the fudge going firm where it hit the ice cream. Kids stretched a sundae out as long as they could, scraping the dish for the last of the fudge. The sundae was the reward at the end of a shopping trip, the thing parents used to keep children quiet through the housewares aisle. The hot fudge sundae still exists, but the version made with a pot of real warm fudge at a marble fountain counter served in that footed glass dish is a thing of the past. Number 6, the banana split. The banana split was the most extravagant thing on the Woolworth's menu, the dessert you ordered to celebrate something. A banana was split lengthwise and laid in a long boat-shaped dish, then topped with 3 scoops of ice cream, usually vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, each one crowned with a different topping: pineapple, chocolate, and strawberry sauce. Whipped cream, nuts, and cherries finished it off. It cost about 39 cents, which made it a splurge, the thing 2 kids might share or a teenager might buy to impress a date. The whole creation was nearly a foot long and took real skill to assemble fast during a rush. Watching the soda jerk build one was half the fun, the bananas and the scoops and the sauces going down in a practiced sequence. The banana split was the showpiece of American fountain culture, the dessert that said the soda fountain could do anything. It survives at a few old parlors, but as an everyday lunch counter order built by hand by a soda jerk, it belongs to a vanished world. Number 5, deviled eggs. Sitting in the cold case alongside the puddings and the gelatin salads, the deviled egg was the cheap protein snack of the Woolworth's counter. Hard-boiled eggs were halved, the yolks mashed with mayonnaise, mustard, and a little vinegar, then spooned or piped back into the whites and dusted with paprika. You could order a couple as a side or a plate of them as a light lunch, often paired with a scoop of cottage cheese and a ring of canned pineapple for the dieters of the day. A few eggs cost a dime. The filling was creamy and tangy. The paprika gave it a little warmth and a lot of color, and they were the kind of food you could eat standing up between errands. Deviled eggs survived at potlucks and holiday tables, but the idea of ordering them at a lunch counter as a quick, cheap bite has completely disappeared. The cold case that held them, full of made-fresh sides under glass, does not exist anymore. Number 4. The club sandwich. The club was the Woolworth's counter's idea of a fancy lunch, the sandwich you ordered when you wanted 3 layers instead of 2. Toasted white bread was stacked with turkey or chicken, bacon, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise, then cut into 4 triangles and held together with frilly toothpicks. It came with a pickle and a pile of chips and cost around 40 cents on the higher end of the menu. The double-decker construction made it feel like more food than it was, and the bacon gave it a smoky richness that the plainer sandwiches lacked. It was the lunch a secretary treated herself to on a Friday, or a traveling salesman ordered because it felt substantial. The club sandwich still exists in diners and hotels, but the Woolworth's version, cut in quarters and speared with those colored toothpicks and served at a counter on a thick white plate, was a small, everyday luxury that has lost its specific home. Number 3. The grilled cheese and tomato soup. This was the most ordered combination on the entire Woolworth's menu, the meal that crossed every age and every income. 2 slices of white bread were buttered, layered with American cheese, and pressed on the hot flat top until the outside went deep gold and crisp and the cheese inside turned to liquid. Beside it came a bowl of cream of tomato soup, smooth and slightly sweet for dunking. The whole thing cost about $0.25. There was nothing fancy about it, and that was exactly the point. The crunch of the buttered bread, the stretch of the cheese, the warm tomato soup that you dragged each bite through. It was comfort engineered down to a nickel and dime price. Mothers ordered it for children, old men ordered it alone, teenagers ordered it after school. It is the one item on this list you can technically still get, but never the way the counter made it, on a flat top scarred by 1,000 sandwiches, served with a bowl of soup and a swivel stool. Number 2. The soda fountain Coca-Cola. Not the cherry version, not the float, just a plain Coke, made by hand. This deserves its own spot because of what it was. The jerk pulled a precise measure of Coca-Cola syrup into the glass, then triggered the carbonated water to mix it fresh on the spot. The ratio mattered, and a good fountain Coke had a balance and a bite that no bottle and no can has ever matched. It cost a nickel. People do not believe it until they taste a real, hand-pulled fountain Coke, but it is a different drink, sharper and more alive, because the carbonation is fresh and the syrup is mixed to taste. The Woolworth's fountain Coke was the social lubricant of small-town America for half a century, the 5-cent excuse to sit at the counter and talk. The fountain itself, the marble counter, the taps, the syrup pulls, was the heart of the store. When self-serve machines and canned soda took over, the hand-mixed fountain Coke became a memory, and most Americans alive today have never tasted one. Number 1. The egg salad sandwich. At the top of this list is the plainest thing on the whole menu, and that is exactly why it belongs here. The Woolworth's egg salad sandwich was hard-boiled eggs, chopped fine and folded with mayonnaise, a little mustard, salt, pepper, and sometimes a whisper of celery, then spread thick on soft white bread. It cost about 15 cents. There was no trick to it, no showmanship, no soda jerk performance. It was the cheapest sit-down lunch in America. The sandwich a woman ordered when she had a dime and a nickel and an afternoon of shopping ahead of her. The egg salad was made fresh every morning in giant batches, creamy and cool, and it tasted like every kitchen in the country at once. This is the sandwich that fed the most people for the least money across the longest span of years. It was on the menu the day the lunch counters opened and the day they closed. It asked nothing of you, and it never let you down. When the last Woolworths went dark in 1997, this humble sandwich, made by hand at a counter where a country once sat down together, quietly disappeared. It is the one we should remember most. Here is my challenge. Tell me which one your grandmother used to order because somebody in your family sat at one of these counters. Drop it in the comments. Because these were never just lunch. They were the last place in America built to feed everybody at the same counter for the same nickel. We let it go. Now you remember it too.